Peter Witte. You're with 360 Universal Solutions. That's your business. We were put in touch by Maggie Brazil, who is engaged to Doug Jackson, who's been on the podcast before. He was episode number 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he was an early supporter. He's been a partner. Same with Maggie. They're great. So when a referral or a connection comes from them, it goes to the top of the list. You know what I mean? And meeting you last Friday, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I see why. And we vibed well. So
Yes,
I appreciate you coming on. The person who's was going to record today, Erica Holland, she's going to be on a future episode. She got called to go to Colombia, as a matter of fact, to do some flower workshops that she couldn't pass up. And so I appreciate you coming in and filling her seat until she can get back on. But that's kind of funny, actually, because your wife is from Colombia.
My wife's from Colombia. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're from Venezuela originally.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're going to hear a nice accent through it. At least people will enjoy one of the voices in this episode this time. What's cool is we discovered that you lived in Indiana and you went to IUPUI, which I am from Indiana, and I went to IUPUI.
Small world, yeah.
So we're brothers from that
absolutely
that alma mater, as they say. So that's pretty cool. You are in merchant services and payment processing and several other industries, which we're going to kind of cover. I thought it was really interesting, popped out, because I'm a traveler. My wife's a traveler. We love everybody in this room's a traveler. And you said that you and your wife have visited 24 countries in the last 4 years.
That's right.
Which is wild. So we're going to dive into that really quickly to set it up. Some things that Maggie, Doug, people who have endorsed you on LinkedIn, from what I've seen, have said really nice things about you, that you have high energy, good energy, that you're dedicated, committed, super driven, and that you're extremely hardworking and go above and beyond. From what I've gathered so far, that's all true. And I don't think that the amount of things that you do could be done without those qualities. And so I want to unravel that through this conversation, because I feel like there's a lot there. How do people go above and beyond and do all of these things compared to someone who doesn't, or doesn't know how to juggle so many responsibilities and ventures?
Yeah.
And so maybe we start with what you do in a nutshell, the things that you do. So you're in merchant services. You're also involved in other ventures. Maybe just give us some backstory on the business side of things, and we're definitely going to talk about those travels.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. So let's talk about the businesses. So about 11 years ago or so, my sister-in-law and her husband, who happens to be my best friend, they started an insurance agency. I was their first employee. I was a contract insurance agent. At the time, I was also in banking. I've been a branch manager, regional manager for different banks throughout the country, really, Indiana and here in Florida. And we started looking at different kind of businesses, myself and my wife and I. We started an insurance agency a few years ago. And then we ended up having an unfortunate situation with a software provider who engaged in some fraud, unfortunately. And so we had to start looking at different ways in which we could reinvent ourselves a little bit. And a conversation we started having a couple years ago was with a company out of Michigan called Deezers. And so Deezers has been doing credit card processing for 23 years. They've never raised rates. They've never sued anybody. They've never been sued. They've never seen anybody in collections. We're like, all right, that's the kind of people we like to do business with. So let's see if we can kind of partner with them, learn the ropes a little bit more of the industry, grow it, and make this kind of a nationwide business. And so I've always had a loan business. I do commercial lending. I do residential mortgages, equity raises, things like that. But on the credit card processing side, we've been growing it now for the last 3 months. We have folks in the field. So these are people who are visiting a bunch of businesses. We have folks who are closing business. We have people who are in a call center. And we are training somebody up in New Jersey, soon somebody in California, soon somebody over in Fort Lauderdale. So we're excited to grow that business. And part of my role is to help train people, close business, and grow the business myself. So in terms of everything else, the other part of the business is lead generation. So we help insurance agencies, since that's a way that we were able to grow our agencies over the years, was the purchase, acquisition, aggregation of leads. And we now do that for other insurance agencies. So high quality leads that are exclusive to them. And we help them strategize on how to train their staff to deal with those leads, call them up, close the business, things like that. So.
All right. Did everybody get all that? I was taking notes. I barely could
few
keep
things.
up. I mean, you're in banking, you're in commercial loans and loans, lending, credit card processing, call center. You do training. You're focused on business growth, lead gen. In a way, you can think of a business owner. And a lot of those things, if you're doing business right or well, a lot of those things are part of it. Or you maybe have to explore like, oh, do I need a loan? And how do I go about that? So your experience really caters itself well to empowering you to really thrive now. I'm kind of curious what led you to all of these ventures? Was it a passion for banking? Was it a passion for credit card processing, or just business and entrepreneurship in general?
So I think business and entrepreneurship is a big part of it. So in banking, branch manager for a number of years, business banker, I ran residential mortgages for 3 counties in Florida. And you realize there's a whole lot of business owners or maybe individuals who want to be business owners who have no idea what they're doing. And sometimes they get themselves in trouble. Sometimes they get the wrong advice. Sometimes they just don't have either a mentor or somebody who's able to help them start that business or know how to kind of structure the ideas a little bit. You and I were talking a bit about before the podcast started about how cool it is to see a business that has been able to persevere for 4 years and grow for 4 years. And you look back at the early days and you're like, man, I had 2 pennies to rub together, or barely that. And now I'm thriving and growing. And to be able to help other business owners achieve something even remotely close to that is one of the most rewarding things that I've ever had in my life. And so we able to kind of grow ourselves, but at the same time advise business owners, whether that be on the merchant services side, the lending side, the lead side, on how they can responsibly and quickly grow their businesses as well. And how we were able to share some of our experiences with them is kind of a cool process. I enjoy that.
Yeah, so that seems to be your fuel, is growth, watching others grow, growing yourself.
For sure.
That's what I like about what we do at Naaman Creative, because we have a business that's growing and our business is helping other businesses grow and thrive.
Absolutely.
And it's really empowering when you watch that unfold and they're super stoked and we're stoked to be working with them. It's like, it barely feels like work sometimes. Sometimes it's hard and you're in the thick of it, but overall, it's very enjoyable to be part of that process.
Yeah.
And you're definitely a connector. You're involved in networking and things like that. So when I meet people like you, it tells me a lot already when you're in networking, when you're caring about connecting, because you're giving. In a way, you're giving. You emailed me very shortly, and I owe you a response because it's a little heavier on like trying to connect me to resources for my business. And like immediately after 1 hour of meeting, or maybe it was an hour and a half, time
good coffee
was,
for sure.
It was yeah. But it's like that says a lot about what you're trying to do for me. I didn't even ask you for that necessarily. We might have like touched on it, but you saw that like, hey, I could help them in this way. How powerful is that the community that we're in, Doug and Maggie are in the same boat, right? A lot of our partners are just like that.
Yeah.
Where I want to help you. I know it'll eventually come back. And even if it doesn't, I'm helping you. And that helps the greater good.
We talked a lot about this even before the podcast. Part of the key to a business growth is the perseverance, right? Especially at the beginning. Am I able to get through that initial stage of maybe uncertainty of not everything working out? And a key part to that is surrounding yourself with great people, surrounding yourself with the right people, right? And so if somebody comes into my network somehow and that person has a need, or there's something I think that I could help them out with somehow, I will do that, because it's not that I have an expectation that person will then return that favor, but I know that as I grow my network and I improve my network, they will improve me in turn, right? So to be able to be one of those people who were able to early on help a business persevere and help a business grow is a really cool thing, but it also helps you with your own personal business. So imagine in your name of creative, right? So if you grow a business, that automatically tells another business, hey, he could do the same thing for me.
Right.
If you are not successful at your business, nobody else is going to believe in you. And you're like, well, my business is going to fail because I just can't do what I'm doing. So the more successes, the more times we're able to help somebody else out. I think that's just good energy out of the world, number one. But two, if I can't dedicate all of my energy to everybody, But the people that I meet and the people I come in contact with that I think are doing the right things, I can dedicate a great deal of energy to them and help them grow and help myself grow.
Yeah, I love that. And what's helpful with determining where your time goes and the people that you interact with is your connections that you've made, the strong partnerships you've made, for instance, Doug
Yeah.
and Maggie, trusting them, having a partnership with them, and then you can, just like I do, and they send me to Peter and they
Yeah.
connect us. It's already vetted. I can take their word for it that this is going to be a good connection. It's worth my time.
Yeah.
I don't have to question it. And it works out that way. So even connecting with the right people over time also helps with your time and your commitment level to directing your energy in the proper channels.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's only so much to go around. Like, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is you've got a lot going on, plus your travels, which I want to dive into.
Yes.
It's like, how do people like you, how do you juggle this efficiently without watering down your energy, without getting burnt out, without, dropping the ball on relationships, whatever that may be? What are some of the techniques and methods that you use to just stay on top of it?
So number one, I have an amazing wife, right? So
That always helps.
it always helps, right? So if there's ever somebody who is constantly encouraging me and encouraging us to grow our business, because we don't see the business so much as just this amorphous thing that's in the middle of nowhere. We see this is an extension of our family. This was going to allow us and our kids in the future to be able to travel more, to have a better education, a better healthcare, whatever the case may be, and our growth of our business and our growth of our family are interconnected one with the other. So
Yeah.
I kind of view it that way. But the second thing is we have an amazing team. We have 5 people in Colombia that help us with our support staff, some of our website design, things like that. We have other folks here in the U.S. And if you don't have a good team around you, whether that be an outsourced service, whether that be a full-time staff, whether that be a contract person, it's very hard for you to grow just yourself and do that. Because at some point, if you are doing everything yourself, you just run out of time, right? But if you're able to delegate to people that you trust, you can take on more. And if you don't have those people, then yes, you are very limited in your business. And I would say if you don't have a team that you can rely on, then don't expand your business too much. Focus on one thing that you're going to do yourself until you can get to that point. Because otherwise it's impossible and you're going to do a very poor job at all of those things, and you're going to give a very poor accord of yourself.
Yeah. You only can do so much.
100%.
And that's why, I happily pay our bookkeeper,
100%.
Adam Morris of Be Smart Accounting.
Yeah.
I am glad to pay him. Or we have a business coach, right? Yeah. These are all things where he's part of, those two are part of our team. I don't want to do those things. I have an accountant. I don't want to do that. And I'm not good at it. So it is an investment in my team or my direct team where I'd love to be audio editing all of these podcasts, but there's no way. And Jordan is stoked about that.
Yeah.
And he's great at it and better at it than me at this point. So why not have him do it and bring someone on? And that also forces us to step into that role. When we started the audio division, we had 0 audio clients. And so we had to make it happen. Okay, we've decided that we have an audio division. Now we have to make this a reality, and it kind of forces you to scale up too. So there's that aspect. But
I love that point. That's really good.
Yeah, one person can't do it alone. So having people that are dedicated, that you can delegate, and you can trust them.
Yeah,
and that's also a difficult thing. But over time, you probably get a lot better at figuring out who those kind of people are.
Yeah, but you mentioned this just a second ago, right? If the people that you're partnering with, you involve them, you treat them well, you pay them well, you could probably count on them to do something good for you. But if you are nickel and diming them all the time, you're not treating them well, then you're probably not going to attract good people. You're going to have a horrible reputation out in the market, and you're going to struggle with attracting top talent forever, really. So
yeah. And then what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's really hard to scale a business that people aren't stoked to be a part of it.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't always come down to dollar and cents, although it's so important, but all the other benefits. Do you have a flexible schedule? We have a business coach for our team that we're formalizing, so all of our team has a dedicated business coach. to work with them.
Yeah.
It's not just me, and each other.
That's awesome.
We have a like a coach, like a
Yeah.
hockey team. When I played hockey, it's like it was important to have a coach, And I'm kind of trying to like level up my business in different ways, and also seeing how with instead of, because we're still we're 4 years young, because that's a lot of time, and we've done a lot since then, but we don't have crazy salaries yet. So what are other ways and methods that I can offer benefits to my team that empower them and make them super stoked about what's ahead? And on top of that, their investment early on, they're at the tip of the iceberg or bottom, however you want to put, where they're foundational. And if the business grows, then they're right at the bedrock of this foundation to grow the team. So it's all exciting because now it's not my business, it's ours, which is also fun. It's harder because now I manage like 5 people's schedules rather than just mine, but I'm okay with that.
Would you say that selling that vision to, especially at the beginning, to early employees is perhaps one of the biggest challenges you see in a lot of the businesses that you work with?
I would imagine, because it's just like trying to take on an investor. If you're trying to tell that investor, like, look, like, I have this vision and this is where we're going. We're not there. So getting people to see what you have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've taken a route where I scaled very slowly as far as bringing people on. And so I used contractors a lot to get started, people who were in my networks, I had previously worked with, who I knew were talented designers and artists and animators, who I knew I could count on. One was a former student of mine.
Oh, very cool.
He taught one of my classes because he was so good. And I was like, one day I'm going to hire you. And so I've had him on several projects, and he crushed it animating. But I couldn't scoop him up full-time at that moment, but at least I was able to use that talent. And I knew that once I got to a certain point, I'd be able to start to bring people on full-time, but I did it very slowly and methodically. And also for me, it's very important to get people who I really like to be around, who like to be around me, see the vision, are stoked about it, love what they do. Those don't come as frequently.
Correct.
And so I maybe have been a little more picky, but that's of course a difficult part of scaling your business, because the big part for me was, when do I hire somebody? When I need them and I'm over capacity, or before I reach capacity? Because
Good point.
there's this awkward spot where you don't have the money to hire somebody on, but you need to hire somebody on to get to that next level. So when do you do it? There's no great answer. In my opinion, it's you got to hire before it gets way too out of hand.
For sure.
And it's just an investment. You take a hit, you figure it out. Maybe you get a little loan just to bridge that couple months, and you pay it back, and now you're thriving.
That's right.
But you got to take that next level. Otherwise, you're alone and you're a freelancer.
Absolutely.
You're capped.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this a little bit when we were having coffee a couple of days ago, and we both came from larger companies. We ended up starting our own businesses. And for me, a good turning point for me was surrounding myself with other business owners. So when I was in the corporate world, I dealt with business owners, but almost just only as customers, never as peers in many ways. And the more self-employed peers I had, the greater that reality was that I was going to be self-employed myself, right? I was also going to have a business myself. And I think just being able to see what their lifestyle was, how they came about it, what their struggles were, things like that. And you're like, those are all surmountable struggles. The benefits outweigh the costs. It's worthwhile. And I look back at some of my friends in banking, and some are doing great and some kind of hate what they do, but they've been there forever because they've never been able to kind of bridge that fear or get rid of that fear to be able to start their own thing. And it's kind of a crazy thing. How did you transition from working for a big company to your own? What was the biggest kind of challenge there for you?
Boy, the turntables.
Oh, the turntables. I love it.
Yes, you got it.
Am I allowed to do this? Ask you a question?
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, number one, at that big company, underneath my production sheet, I had another sheet underneath it, my plans for my business, because I was taking notes on when I get an idea, when an idea struck me, or in that toxic work environment, what I didn't want to do with my business. In a way, COVID is such a dark cloud. And there were heavy layoffs in my business that I was in, and it was for the better, because it led me to a payment processing company where I became a digital marketer. And it kind of was like the last gap in creative production, business, marketing, design that I didn't have experience in. And once I was like a year and a half into that role, I was like, that was the last puzzle piece to where I was like, I felt really empowered to start my business. Plus, Kyle Hall, the owner of that business, and my marketing director, Dustin Capper, they were super supportive of me starting my own business. They knew that I was going
That's
to,
awesome.
and we're friends to this day. Dustin's worked with me. We'll have them on the podcast. But ultimately, it was just a matter of time. I always knew it. I've been involved in startups and smaller agencies. I just always had the bug. And I think that you were talking about, like, some people just don't take the leap. And it's not for everybody because it's really a lot. But once you're in it, there's like nothing more fun. But yeah, I think it was just a progression. It was a progression of passion that I knew I was going to do it, and finally feeling empowered to know the process of all of these different aspects of what I wanted to start, which
Yeah.
is a creative production marketing agency. So that was my transition. It's a lot more nuanced from that. But what about yours?
Yeah. So I was in, I think, especially banking. I kept on meeting business owners and I'm thinking, man, that guy's dumb as a box of rocks, but he's doing great. Or not that, but I always kept on thinking, what is the skill that person has that I don't have? Or what is it about them that I don't have that's maybe either keeping me here and not starting my own thing? And I always kept on trying to leave banking. I became a operations manager for a metal recycling company. I bought a bar that didn't go well, all these different things. So I kept on trying to do something to get out of it. And it kept on dragging me back. And I said, well, maybe I don't leave it entirely and I have some of the same functionality I had in banking, which is credit card processing, loans, things like that. That's still banking. But I do it on my own. And so it kind of allowed me to think about self-employment without having to do such a big leap from
Yeah.
a skill set, if you will.
Yeah.
Because a bar is completely different. Metal recycling was completely different. And I
You were in
think,
metal recycling?
oh, that was the craziest thing, man. That is the wildest industry on the planet.
I am so fascinated with trash.
Oh,
I don't know why. Like, where does it go? What can we do with it? How can we use it? It's wild to me. What can you talk about a little bit about
yeah.
that?
So we had 3 plants. 45, I was over like 45, 47 people.
Jeez.
People would come in with tons and tons of trash. One time, you would have people who were trying to steal like markers on graves, people trying to steal like manhole covers. So we all constantly had cops picking people up for stealing metal, right?
You'd have to report them.
you
Like,
had to report
they
them.
have a man.
Yeah,
They're trying to
yeah.
sell me a manhole cover.
But then you'd have people who worked at like some of the cable companies bring in tens of thousands of dollars a month in cable that they had taken from a replacement that they did. They just came over to recycle it. So we would have inspectors from China. We'd have people from Latin America coming in and just buying shiploads, entire shipping containers full of metal, whether this be aluminum, whether that be copper, or we'd have very almost like medical grade gold. It would be all these different components. And so
Whoa.
we would have tons of different things that we were doing. But I always felt, I was like, I would tell my wife, I was like, I think the FBI is going to raid us someday. This just feels so dirty. Because a lot of the business owners that own those metal recycling companies have been around for, seems like 100 years. And they would make some comments about maybe somebody disappeared in my yard one day. Maybe my machinery was used for this. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to know about that. So there was another division of the
Yikes.
company that would take cars apart and we'd sell, I don't know, engines to Mexico or used car parts for F-150s. The doors, for example, would go to somewhere else. And
So you didn't melt it down or anything?
no, we
You
never
just collected
never.
it
We would collect it
and then
and
disperse
sell
it.
it.
Sell
and
it.
we would either smash it together. We'd have a machine that would turn a car into something the size of a microwave oven, for example.
No way.
Yeah, and then sometimes if you didn't take all the fuel out of the tanks, there would be an explosion. That was always exciting. And,
Oh my God.
we were running out of fire extinguishers every month. It was crazy. So
That's wild.
yeah, but it was a very different kind of world, but also a good world to see. And I think that you can be kind of isolated about what everybody else does for work, and you say, "Man, this is good work. This is hard work. I mean, it's nothing I've ever experienced before in my life, and this is a completely different industry that I have very little experience in. I know management, but we brought in a consulting firm to teach the the management team Lean Six Sigma concept. So
Yeah.
we got everybody green Six Sigma or
I've got
green
my
belt.
yellow belt.
Yeah, we got the green belt. So
Oh,
that was kind
wow.
of cool. Yeah.
How did you get into that?
The metal recycling was one of my biggest customers at TD Bank. Said,
Ah.
I like the way that you're managing your branch. I'd love for you to come over and be my operations manager at my plant.
Whoa. You made that
And-
big of an impression.
And apparently, so yeah. So then I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. So
Cool.
I'm interested. Let's talk about salary. Let's talk about what that looks like. And I only lasted there for about 7 months. It was just too different an industry. I went back to banking after that, but it was
You couldn't like vibe with it, like your passion wasn't in it, or
no. I mean, it was the nature of the industry is one that it is very gruff, and it is one that I'll give you an example. We would have radioactive material show up sometimes because parts of Florida have radioactive material in their metal.
right.
So the process of getting rid of that, half the time you're thinking, I don't know if this is the right way to do it. Is this legal? There were so many things that I didn't know about that I was like, man, this is going to get myself or the company into trouble. I don't know if I want to continue to approach this. I understood banking very well. I understood all the
Right.
risks of it. This was just a very
It's
different
a different
animal.
world.
Different world.
Yeah.
Completely. Yeah.
I think that's fascinating, though. First off, it's so cool to be involved in other worlds. That's why I love what I do, because I work with all sorts of different businesses, and we have to get a pretty good idea of what they're doing in order to help them grow. But, like trash, recycling, the process of where things go in the world, sometimes we just flush the toilet, throw out the trash, and absolutely forget about it. And I constantly, when I bring out the trash, we recycle, I think about like, where's this paper going versus this can? Like, what is the process? Eventually I'll like go down that rabbit hole, but it is an absolute completely different world. I'd recommend also, if you haven't seen it, but to people out there, there's an amazing, super powerful documentary called Wasteland. And there's a huge, one of the biggest dumps in the world in Rio de Janeiro,
Yeah.
I believe. And there are trash pickers. And this artist, it's a documentary about this artist who goes to that area and works with the trash pickers.
Yeah.
And then they create pieces of art from that trash. And then he sold those pieces of art to help those people. It is,
That's
I
awesome.
mean, if you don't cry during that
Yeah.
documentary at least once,
Yeah.
you got to check around for your soul.
Yeah.
But it's like super powerful, and you just see these mountains of trash, and it's like, what do we do with that? There's got to be better ways. Luckily, like recycling's a thing, or
Yeah.
how can we power things? I don't know, if I didn't have this company and I had some connections to that,
Yeah.
I would be very interested in that.
I can get you some connections to that. At least
right.
that world for sure. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
we're shutting her down.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
Because there's a guy in Tampa. His job was to take old computers and separate them, take the gold pieces out, take the other metals out,
Right.
and he would sell pallets full of these little metal pieces that were taken out of computers.
I'd
And
love
that
to
would
have him
go
on the
somewhere
show.
else. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was a
yeah.
really interesting guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We have a junk hauler in our networking group. That's why I love networking. is
Yeah.
I have connections to particular people, but it sounds like that guy's maybe more deep
Yeah.
in it. But I want to have him on. Like, when you go to the trash dump, what's the process of like demoing a house and then bringing this trash and all this stuff that's like not useful anymore? How can you make that useful? How can you like grind it up and then make a house from it as long as it's not radioactive?
Yeah.
Or if it is radioactive, what is the process?
Yeah.
Because there's got to be, or you just bury it. We just pulled on a thread here. It's time to stop thinking about your website like a car. Instead, think of it like a home, because you want it to be an asset. Like a home, assets appreciate in value. And that new car is going to lose a significant chunk of its value as soon as you drive it off the lot. Luckily, Naaman Creative is here to help you build your dream home. We will make your website appreciate over time, so you're able to publish quality, user-focused content at a high pace, own it, so it's yours to build and scale your business systems, be resilient to technology and security changes, keep it fast, safe, and secure with regular maintenance, and generate more leads. Contact us today at info@namancreative.com or visit our website at namancreative.com to get started.
Well, that brings up an interesting point about the Latin America, right? So for Brazil, for trash picking.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up in Venezuela, And I would say that a big differentiator between a lot of third world countries and the US is if I graduate from, I don't know, University of Michigan, University of Indiana, I did well in my studies, I could get a good job. I don't need a connection necessarily. My uncle doesn't have to be the president of the company. My mother doesn't have to be the owner of the company, whatever the case may be. And in a lot of countries, that's a big differentiator. I could have graduated out of my class in Brazil, and if I didn't have the right connections, it's possible I didn't get a job that paid very well.
Uh-huh.
So when I think about documentaries like you mentioned, I said, what drove a person to have to pick through trash and make art and sell it? What was the opportunity that was missed? Or what opportunity did I have that I have
Mm-hmm.
that didn't require me to do that, right? I don't have to pick trash. I make enough money that that's not a necessity for me. So whenever I go and I travel somewhere else, I think about, okay, what was it about their current situation in life that they didn't either have the support necessary to get a job that paid enough, that they would have to be the person selling, I don't know, shoes on the side of the street kind of a thing, or picking through trash to make art or whatever that job may be, that I thought, wow, that's crazy. So I'm very grateful to have traveled to the point where I can see some of those differences that I can then appreciate the opportunities available in the US, for example. Right? So
I was wondering that what is your, okay, because that's a wonderful mental exercise when traveling. I think there's so much power to traveling, and here's a segue to it. When you are thinking about those things, also, are you thinking about how can I apply this to what I do, whether it be how I can hire on or scale a part of the business to then hire people who might have missed those opportunities or provide opportunities that otherwise wouldn't be missed? Like,
yeah,
the power of traveling is to get you out of your bubble and out of that, of your normal, lens. It's so, so powerful. Anybody that I've ever met who's well-traveled has this much greater scope of what actually is going on in the world. Nobody could ever know all of it, but having a greater appreciation,
sure.
a gratefulness for it, because I feel that I've traveled a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much as you, I don't think, but nonetheless, it has made me who I am. It literally, I wouldn't be where I am, who I am. I wouldn't be married to someone who I am. I wouldn't have the family, this business without traveling. That's where I put all my money, and it is worth every dime. And I just sometimes I'm wondering, and everybody has their own thing, but it's like, you aren't even curious what's out there. Luckily now you could watch a documentary and get a good feel for it, but I'm kind of curious at a higher level. Do you feel that about your travels where it's made you who you are?
100%. And so I'll give you an example. So we lived in Panama for a year. So in 2003, my parents were still in Venezuela. My parents are missionaries. And the army showed up because there was some spat between Venezuela and the U.S. at the time. And the army knocks on the door and they tell my parents they have 2 weeks to leave the country. All Americans are getting kicked out.
The U.S. Army was the one
No,
knocking.
the Venezuelan army knocked on all Americans' doors to kick out. Okay. So then you realize, okay, that's a crazy situation. So then my parents went to Panama. So while they're in Panama, my mom would help indigenous women it's a tribe called the Kuna native tribe in Panama, and they are the largest Indian population there in Panama. And she would help these women they knew how to make these traditional clothing and garments and things like that. And my mom would help sell them in the U.S. My mom wouldn't make them, but she would sell them in the U.S. That additional income meant that these women could now keep their daughters in school until they graduated. Pregnancy rate goes down. Divorce rate goes up a little bit because a lot of these women realized my lazy husband who does nothing and is kind of abusive, I don't need him, right?
Yeah.
And so you start to think about, on one end, what difference can we make in the world? And it might not seem like a big deal, but just taking some of that kind of authentic art and selling the U.S. and the money back for them was kind of transformative. In terms of like travel, the first trip I went on with my wife, we went to Cuba. And Cuba is for somebody who's never traveled outside. It's a crazy place too.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to be able to see how we traveled together and how when we came to the country, our mind wasn't clouded with prejudgment about it. We just came 100% clear. Let's figure out what this place is about. No prejudgment. I knew a decent amount about Cuba, but I didn't want to go in and say, okay, this and that.
That's the way to
Amazing.
go into
That's the way to go.
any
That's the
place,
way to go.
honestly, any situation.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so you say, okay, what did I learn from this? What did I take out of it? What are some good things, some qualities? And a lot of times you say, man, this place could have been this, or I could tell this place was this before, etc. We recently were in Cambodia. And Cambodia we just had a recent civil war, and they're still under a dictatorship. And our tour guide, he's probably in his 60s or so, spoke really good English, but he said, listen, when I was growing up, there was Pol Pot was there. He was killing people left and right. And one of the reasons they would kill people if they spoke English. And so he said, we had to learn English, hiding under the brush. And we had one lady in our village who spoke perfect English. And she taught a lot of us. So a lot of the tour guides that are my age, that's how we learned English, hiding in the jungle, basically. So he was still very nervous about speaking about the government in many ways. And in Cambodia, we were there for only a couple of days, but we went to Angkor Wat. And there's still some bullet holes in Angkor Wat from their civil war and people kind of shooting at each other. And so you realize this is a place that still lives as if people lived 70 years ago, 80 years ago. And the infrastructure is so poor in many areas of the country. And that's kind of what happens. You have such a big concentration of power and not everybody gets access to it and what happens. And so that to me is once again, you learn a lot about it. You put your life in perspective. You become more grateful for it. And if you take anything out of traveling, it is my life problems are likely very insignificant compared to the life problems of people all over the world.
100%.
So I'm losing my temper over taking 3 extra minutes in the McDonald's wait line, right? Why?
Yeah.
Is my life really that easy that this is what's making me upset? Then shame on me, right? And so I think with travel, it helps you kind of put things in perspective, gives you an appreciation for people elsewhere. We've seen and hired some amazing talent in other countries as well. And you realize, man, if these people lived in the US or lived in England, for example, they'd be millionaires.
They'd be crushing it.
They'd be crushing it.
Yeah, totally.
So I think it's a humbling thing as well. And you realize, man, that person, if we had switched lives and I had been born where they're born and they were born where I'm born, they probably would have been more successful than me, right?
Yeah.
And I think understanding that sometimes even I'd say 75% of who you are is completely out of your control. I was born in Venezuela to American parents, so I got dual citizenship. I have no control over that.
That alone is interesting.
Right? We would go to school in Spanish. We'd come home. My parents would homeschool me in English. I had 2 parents who were well educated, both have their master's degrees. Not everybody's born in a household like that. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's born with a full household of both parents still there who are awesome parents who are willing to teach their kids English in the afternoon. And we learned English, Spanish. And then we had physics classes in English and physics classes in Spanish, right? Cool.
Wow. I
got the opportunity to come to the U.S. to go to college. Not everybody has that opportunity. And so don't be so arrogant about where your current situation is in life. Travel some more. Understand that in the grand spectrum of the world, you are, I'm not going to say an insignificant piece, but don't take yourself so seriously. Don't take some of your more insignificant problems so seriously. You could be much happier in life, much better husband, much better boss, whatever the case may be.
Man, 100%. We'll snippet lots of that to just put out there. For me, I feel like what things that you were just saying would be solutions to a lot of the problems here, in the U.S., where there's such like tribalism going on, whether it be politics or, even down to like sports, where it's like, traveling, one thing that has taught me is that we are very much alike. We all love to laugh and we want to be healthy. We love our family and friends. Music is universal and there's talent everywhere. And our differences are actually so small. And when you travel, you see just how small it actually is when you come home and you're even more in common with people. But people extrapolate one difference of disagreeing with the number of how much tax should be, whatever. And now you're enemies. Yeah. They're literally against you when we actually should be on the same team. And it's like, if there could be like a little prescription for everybody, just like, okay, for a month, you got to go to like a couple different places out of these borders. And that's just, we need you all to get recalibrated as far as your perspective.
sure.
I think that would be a really big game changer as far as our collective perspective, And what's cool is even if you can't travel physically, you can experience a lot of that, like whether it be connecting with people from other countries online or learning about it in a documentary, but also I think the focus is elsewhere. So, it's kind of a shame that that's not taken more seriously. That would change the world in a way. And I'm not trying to be, idealistic or grand or whatever it is, but I really, this isn't a new thought.
No.
I felt it early on when I taught in Poland for a month. And in the middle of that, I went to Auschwitz. And that was more powerful than ever. I get shivers right now thinking about that day. And I'll never, ever forget it. And the people in Poland were so fun, so friendly, great food. I mean, it's smart, and it's just a different place. And I've taken so much from the similarities than any differences ever. You and I met last Friday.
Yeah.
I feel like we're similar.
Absolutely.
And we have plenty to talk about. I knew that when we hit record, there'd be no problem. Like, okay, what do you want to talk about?
Conversation.
So it's just a very powerful thing. And like for you, so the last 4 years, you have traveled to 24 countries. So if my math is right, that's like 2 countries a month.
6 a year. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So 6 a year. Yeah. One every 2 months. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, do you bundle it? So you go like on a trip for a month and you hit a few countries. Like, what are your goals? Is it for business, for pleasure, for both?
So there was an experience I had. I was in Yellowstone National Park, and there was a traffic with a bunch of bison, right? I couldn't move my car. But while I was in that car, I closed the loan. And I was thinking, okay, I can do business being remote. This is the way to be. So no matter what it is, that's a key component. So my wife is a producer for iHeartRadio. She's an on-air talent. So she takes her mini recording studio with her as we travel. So we've recorded in Thailand. She's recorded in Australia. She's recorded in Europe. She's recorded in South America, etc. And so we're able to work as we travel. Sometimes there are experiences that we say, you know what, let's shut off all the equipment. Let's just enjoy this. Mm-hmm. If you don't have to work while you travel, your travel could be a lot cheaper. Because sometimes if you need good internet, maybe your hotels have to be a little bit more and stuff like that.
Yep.
But we go in there kind of without a preconceived notion of what the place is, but we like to pack our days. So when we were in Thailand, I think we had something scheduled from 7 a.m. till 4 o'clock in the afternoon every single day, right? So it was tours, going seeing elephants, going seeing temples, whatever the case may be. So we love to travel. We love to kind of immerse ourselves in the culture. Every time we try to get a local guide.
Yeah.
And so when we were in Bali, we went to one of the water temples there, and our guide, he's Buddhist, and he had a little temple in his house. Every morning he brought a little like offering that he put right in his car. And this is an offering to nature, he said. And to see somebody who was that immersed in his culture, loved his religion kind of a thing, it doesn't mean that I'm Buddhist, but I could appreciate his affinity to that culture, his sincerity with it. And he explained the different traditions. And we were very, very conscious about asking, hey, listen, we would love to participate in this ceremony at the water temple. Would you be offended if us non-practicing Buddhists are able to do this? He's like, no, that'd be fine. This is how you do it. This is how you are respectful. Don't do this. This would be disrespectful. Mm-hmm. I was like, cool. So for us to be in that world, appreciate the world, but not be arrogant enough that we say, okay, we can't respect and appreciate these differences. And so we ask a lot of questions. We love to explore different places. And if there's a suggestion for people on traveling to Asia, don't take as much clothes. They have a lot of good places that you can just do laundry there for cheap. And so I would have probably taken half the amount of clothes that we took. But we scheduled the last one in Asia. We did Turkey, Cambodia, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, specifically Bali. We did it in about a month.
In a month,
Yeah,
all that in a month.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
if you're packing your days like that, you can be really efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's
so-
cool.
and
So
then
you
we did
flew
another
into
one in-
Turkey? That was your first?
Yeah, I went to Turkey. It was
Yeah.
like a 9-hour layover. If you've never been to Turkey, Istanbul's airport is amazing. Istanbul
Oh, it's
itself is
huge.
amazing. You've been there before.
Yeah.
Actually, you've been to much more in Turkey than I have, but it's a beautiful place. Just the history of it. Yeah, it was really cool. So
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more on local guides. I volunteered at a computer graphics conference called SIGGRAPH since 2008. And in traveling, they have a SIGGRAPH Asia in the winter of every month and then a SIGGRAPH normal in North America somewhere.
Okay.
When I go to Asia, it's cool because the people who are from there take us out. Or, after the conference in Seoul, Korea, me and 4 buddies traveled through China for 3 weeks and, went Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Macau, and back to Hong Kong. And my buddy, he speaks all sorts of languages and knows a lot. And we had a guide and a friend who would take us to the Great Wall of China. And he was a journalist, so we went past where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
It's just magical.
Yeah.
In Cuba, me and my wife went on a cruise and we got to go to Cuba for 1 day.
very cool.
But we made the most of that 1 day. It was really cool because were like, let's just go and we're going to find someone who can bring us around. We'll find them. And we walked out. There's like all the old cars lined up. And one of the guys is there. He looks nice. And his name's Shrek. and so he takes us on like a 2-hour car ride. And he's like, you guys want to keep hanging out? And we're like, yeah. How much is it? And he says an amount. We're like, oh my gosh, yeah. And so we continue he keeps taking us to all sorts of places he loves, places where it's like this hidden spot in like a wooded area. And there's this bar and they give us, when you order a pina colada, they give you the bottle and just the juice in your cup. And you just pour however much. And then they just let us have the bottle. And he was driving us around. But he took liking to us so much that he just took us through the whole day. It was the whole day with him. He took us to a museum and everything. We just hung out. He stopped on the side of the road. He's like, you guys mind if I stop really quick? He had seen someone at a fence working on their car, got into his trunk, got his tire iron out, went and helped them real quick, came back. He's like, thanks a lot, guys. And we're just like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And he was so nice, gave me a pack of Cubans to take, a bottle of rum to take, like just here's a gift. And it's like, I'll never forget that experience, even though we were pretty drunk by the end of the day.
Yeah, sure.
And it was just a beautiful day. And we learned a lot about Cuba. He showed us his little ledger that had he got 3 bags of bread, a carton of eggs, because it's just a different world. And it was neat because we were able to share in a day where we were so different and so same. So similar in that same day. And just never forget that kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of tell that story because it's just so powerful. I could think back on that moment and it's just so vivid and so important. And my wife listening to this, she'll be able to picture that whole day and how important it was to us.
Yeah.
And how special it was. And then we got back on a cruise ship and got in the pools and saw comedy that night, but got back into our world, which was not Cuba. And switching gears, how funny it is that you can just go from 10 miles an hour to 1,000 like that. Anyways, it's just, it's incredible what's out there. And you just have to take the step to, number one, get a passport.
Yeah.
It's like $150 or whatever. You go take your picture. I know there's a huge majority of Americans who don't have a passport. That is your ticket to the world.
Yeah.
And we are so privileged that you just have to get a visa that's automatically approved, maybe. And you can go anywhere in the world. Not everybody also has that privilege that we do.
So I've road tripped to 47 states in the U.S. And I would say for people who are fearful about traveling overseas, California is as dissimilar to New Orleans as Belgium is to Germany.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you are fearful about like doing a big leap and going to Asia, for example, you want to dip your toe into the water, start with experiences in the US. There are small towns in Vermont that people speak French, and they have amazing fresh maple syrup that they put on fresh pancakes, which are amazing, and they're completely different than people who are in Houston, Texas, right, for example. And appreciate some of your own dissimilarities in the US, and I think it can give you a really good insight into how to navigate dissimilarities in other countries, right? So people in Minnesota are very different than people in New York. And I've done sales all over the world. I've sold software for a number of years, and calling somebody in Minnesota, they're very polite, and it's very likely they'll ever tell you no because they're kind of embarrassed to. Whereas you call somebody in New York, it's very abrupt. You know exactly where you stand. It's yes, no. And so people might confuse that with rudeness, but it's
Yeah.
just a different way of doing things. And California is different as well. And so it helps you prepare for the huge differences somewhere else. Now, you mentioned earlier resetting yourself by traveling to other countries. And your travels, what would you say are 2 or 3 countries that people must visit in order to be reset, that you'd say is a must?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I'm biased, but because my wife's from Turkey, but Turkey was has been eye-opening because the people are great, and it's weird that they're going backwards in as far as the progression of their country, and it's sad to see. But what's beautiful is the people are still so warm. They really care about family, and there's amazing history there. Istanbul's really cool.
Huge.
However, if you go there for a week, spend 1 or 2 days in Istanbul and then go along the coast. Go to Cappadocia and Efes and Butterfly Valley. These places, my wife took me on a 1-week birthday tour through Turkey, and I mean, I'll never forget it. And so that's cool. That's like Eurasia. Okay. So then I would recommend going to Asia. China was really cool because we took a train from, Beijing to Shanghai to Hong Kong. And even just those 3 spots, that gave us a really good flavor of Asia, of China. And that was really cool. So Vancouver has a very special place in my heart, where it's like, I think that could be more comfortable, where it's like, oh, that's out of the country, but it's not so different, And Poland for me was really cool because of the history again. And I would just recommend doing something that is like going to make you really uncomfortable. Like going to Auschwitz, our crew was not like, yeah, woohoo. It's like that drive. Even there, we watched a documentary to like prep us. And it was in the bus ride home, it was silent and our eyes were all puffy. I mean, it was very important and very moving and very uncomfortable. And I feel like it's really good to get outside your comfort zone. So honestly, anywhere, spin a globe and put your finger down and go. Because one thing I've learned is that we're similar all over the place. Also, most people are super nice and want to help.
Yeah.
It is the bad apples and the crap going on in the world that make the news, that give people this perception of, oh my gosh, there's such disarray. And like even a Ukrainian company just gave us a lead.
Yeah.
And they're super nice, and they're conducting business and followed up formally and are so nice.
It's crazy.
And they're in the middle of a war.
Yeah.
Referring me in America business.
That's awesome.
That's not everything that we see in the scope. So just go anywhere.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. The places to me now it's what resonates with me personally because of those personal experiences, and that's all I can speak about. I also recommend an easy way to travel is book a cruise for a week, because you go to 3 or 4 destinations, you get a taste, you're brought right there, you go back on the ship, you got your lodging, your food, your entertainment taken care of. It's super good investment. It's not great for the environment, and I'm working on figuring out how I can do my best on that.
Next time,
yeah, I'll just sail. But how about you? How would you answer that question? Top 3.
No, I think the way you answered it is great, and I think places like Canada, Mexico. I would say that of some of the places I've been to in Mexico, especially Latin America, people are perhaps the proudest of being Mexico, Mexicans that almost any other place. If you go to Oaxaca, for example, a lot of people don't even speak Spanish. They still speak old Mayan languages, right?
Oh,
So,
cool.
which is really cool. And you get a really good example of how Catholicism and animism kind of clashed, right? And what happened and how were these things built and how this happened. Another one I would say was really kind of eye-opening was to see like Panama, and you see how the canal impacted the culture. Another one was Berlin and Germany. So in Berlin, you still have where the wall was, the Berlin Wall. And if you look on one side, you see the Russian side, or what used to be the Russian side. And on the other side, you see what the German side is. And you can see the architecture is different. The personality of the people are different from one side of that wall to the other. It is incredible. Southeast Asia for sure. And my brother and his wife, they live in Africa. I haven't made it there yet, but they think that's a good place to go. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're all from there.
We're all from there.
Go back to the roots.
For sure, for sure. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, we could sit here and talk all day.
Yeah.
We have reached a point in our episode called the rapid fire.
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do it. So essentially, I try to ask the similar questions to all my guests to see what similarities there are and what differences there are in these questions. And it's just a good way to get some extra juice out of you.
Let's do it.
So number one, I got to start with, where's your number one top place that you've ever traveled in the world?
I could live in Bali, and top big city would be Sydney, Australia.
Okay. Yeah. Got to make it out to both of those then. I'm adding to the list. You hear that, Hyundai? That's my wife's name, by the way. Make a mental note.
There you go.
Do you have a favorite book?
So there are two. One is called Guns, Germs, and Steel. Great book about kind of the history of the world and why we have these differences and why we have these similarities. And the other book is, I'm big on philosophy. So I think anything from Aristotle, I did my dissertation on the difference between a good person and a good citizen. So just look up Aristotle's thoughts on that. Him and Socrates go back and forth on that. So that's cool.
Love it. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
What is your biggest source of inspiration?
The need to make sure that, so I had a conversation with my grandfather before he passed away, and he tells me, Peter, remember that your last name is my last name. So everything that you do now, future, in the past also impacts who I am now in the future and the past. And so for me to make sure that I do the same thing for my family, for my wife, etc., that everything that I do is to make sure that we grow and become better human beings and a better family, strong family. Yeah.
Wow.
That's my inspiration.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that perspective on it. Your grandpa seems cool.
Yeah.
You could listen to one album or musical artist on repeat for the rest of your life. Who is it?
Oof.
I know. That's like the hardest question of the episodes.
For some reason, I like Kygo. He's more like electronic music.
Oh, yeah.
Another one.
His rendition of Icy Fire is gold.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Another one that I listen to on a pretty regular basis would be one that I kind of have on repeat. And I think John Legend I could listen to pretty much on repeat for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Evolvers.
So
that
good.
album.
So good.
Oh,
yeah. I put those two right now.
Okay. I'll accept it. You're doing well. You've got full points so far. One person, dead or alive, that you could hang out with for one day. Who would it be?
I love hanging out with my wife. So alive, I would say my wife. If it would be...
Lucky you.
Yeah, I know. If it was somebody that was dead, man, I think I would say, just ask Jesus and just ask him a bunch of questions, or somebody that I think was like a long-term, maybe like Buddha or one of those guys, which would be, I guess his name was Siddhartha Gautama. Those two guys.
Okay, yeah. Someone who's just like a
eternal
figure in history.
Yeah.
Good deal. I'll allow it with a dead and alive, two answer.
Perfect.
Because you were creative with your answer on that. Last one.
Yes.
What's your definition of success?
An approximation to the maximization of your potential. Whether that be financially, whether that be emotionally, whether that be intellectually, etc. And fully understanding that you will never 100% maximize that potential, but getting close to it, that's something you should strive to. become the best version of a husband. You could be the best version of a father. You could be maximize your potential as a business owner, maximize your potential as an intellectual. That's my definition of success. And if you've been able to approximate that, you're successful.
I love that. That's a great way to put it, because, perfection is just not a thing, but you can strive for it. And that journey, it's not that destination, which isn't even a thing, is so important. Huge on that. Well, it seems like you're doing that from everything we've talked about and future conversations, because I look forward to our ongoing partnership
100%.
at this point. It's been a real pleasure. Real quick for people, what are your plans for 5-10 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years, the business?
So on the credit card processing side, we want to be in every state in the U.S., and we also want to be in multiple countries, being able to have business there. In terms of the loan business, similar, just growth. And on the lead business, maybe expanding to other markets on the lead side. And not a monopoly, I think that's a good word, but we're just growing our team to the point where everybody's successful, making good money. So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
And I guess you could probably put up, if you keep your pace of traveling 24 countries in 4 years, by the time you're, in 20 years, you'll have traveled the entire
All of them.
world. Yeah.
That's the goal.
Is that a goal?
That's a good goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to go as many places as possible. Some maybe aren't possible, and that's okay.
I'm on North Korea right now, but other than that, yeah.
Fun fact, I have a North Korean stamp in my passport from Dorsun Station. So I was at a train station that's
So
like a
cool.
safe spot, but it was wild.
Yeah.
It was wild. The DMZ, learning about that, you just outside your comfort zone for sure. Yeah.
That's my goal now, then, to get the DMC passport. for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah. I'll give you some pointers, connect you with
Cool.
some people. Well, cool. Wrapping this up, I always like to ask anybody listening, whether they're an entrepreneur or a traveler or young or old, what's your biggest piece of advice for someone to leave them with?
So take that leap. It doesn't mean that you quit your current job to 100% start a new entrepreneurship kind of venture, but get going, do it. I mean, if you think you're too old to start something, that's never true. You think you're too young to start something, that's never true. Get out of your comfort zone, like we mentioned a bunch of times. Go travel. There are pairs of shoes that cost more than flights that you can take to other cool places. Road trip somewhere. Check out new places, expand your horizons, and surround yourself with better people than perhaps you're surrounded with now. And if you haven't been able to find good people in your life, maybe expand that a little bit too. Maybe you find those in your travels. Maybe you find those in books. Maybe you find those in conferences and networking groups, etc. But surround yourself with better people, travel to more places, make that leap, start more businesses. That's it.
I don't think I could have said it better myself.
There you
So mic drop on that. Don't drop this mic. It won't drop. It's connected to
I see it. I can't do it. Unplug it. There you go.
I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much,
It's
man. I
been really
appreciate it.
cool to get to know you. Obviously, our connections and the people who we
Yeah.
trust, it's obviously, it works. But congrats on where you are. Love your perspective. I look forward to following you as you grow.
You too.
Yeah.
Many more conversations in the future for sure.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Thank you.